Alrighty, welcome everybody. We're here for our Las Vegas Futures Trading Strategies Meetup. It's June 23rd, 2022. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it. We have Charles here from last month, who was introducing his trading strategy using Renko and a number of other things that was really interesting, but we had to cut it off early because I was getting a little bit late. So I think I don't really have anything to bring up. We obviously have our general trading meetup next week in person. So would love to see you guys come out and actually hang out for a little bit and talk shop. And outside of that, really not much else to add. Market looks like it's going where we expected it to go. I actually think we're going to be revisiting the lows of the COVID correction back when we went down to about 2,100 on the S&P. So I have a feeling that we will be down there at some point here in the coming year. And maybe we'll have some type of bullish rally, maybe fake a bunch of people out, and then the bears will come right in and swat it right back down, and we'll be revisiting those lows. So that's just one idea I had of as to what I see happening here in the near future. So with that being said, let's go ahead and we're going to send it over to Charles, and Charles is going to pick up from where he finished last time. So Charles, once again, thank you for presenting. Thank you for being here. Loved everything you shared last time. In fact, the Renko stuff, I think Joel said you've been looking at it and saw it. You found a lot of promise. I was supposed to do it, and just for a few weeks here, I just totally forgot. So this is my reminder to bring a Renko chart up and see how I can couple that with what I do on the S&P. So let's send it over to Charles here, and I'll let you take it over.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it sounds great.
Okay, fantastic. And I appreciate you having me on and allowing me to get my chops going, working a little bit, trying to learn the process of putting on a presentation. And I don't have any fixed slides or screens. Again, we're just going to be going right into the meat of what I've kind of put together over the years. And and as always, if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat, or feel free to interrupt me and let me know if you see something, or if somebody wants to get on the mic. I'm happy to answer anything while the question is hot. So with that said, I'll go ahead and get ready to share my screen here. And I'm going to move something over for the moment. Do that. So let's go screen share.
Make sure I have.
I think it says you've disabled. So
let me see here. Allow participant. Oh, the one thing that's not checked. Okay. Yeah. There we go. You should be good now.
No problem. Okay, so let me know if you can see my Gmail. It should be up on the screen. Right
now. Yeah, you have a lot of tabs.
Oh, I do. Yeah, and that's just on this computer. You should see my laptop. So what I wanted to do is, and actually,
did you want to pull up those questions?
I did, and that's
okay.
Why.
Okay, perfect.
I meant to have that up, and then when I moved it over, I switched tabs briefly. So. Yes, I noticed, or thank you for noting to me that here's the YouTube channel where you posted. It's on the JT Futures YouTube channel, and I'm embarrassed that I should have already subscribed on this. So I've done that now. Bing, you've got another subscriber now.
There but thank you.
It's already a month ago. So if you hear this or watch this video in the future, surely please accept my deepest apologies that I did not even think to look on the YouTube channel for the posting and see if anybody was commenting there. So I apologize. This is a month late. Thank you for your feedback. You had a few questions here, so let's go briefly through that. So your first question is, does the Renko chart form head and shoulder patterns? And my response to that would be, absolutely, you can see head and shoulder patterns if the price action moves in that direction, or moves that way. Again, the Renko bars simply take the time component out of, so you don't have a bar printing every X period. whether it's minutes or seconds or hours. So it only closes a bar. The Renko bars only close and start printing a new bar once price moves a predetermined number of ticks, either in the direction of the trend or against the trend. So it'll be a little bit easier. I can actually minimize or move this to the side a little bit just to show. And in the background, you'll see here, oops, doesn't like to get pulled too far to the side. So this is what Renko bars do. So the way Renko bar prints, what I have here, I have these set to a 6-1 Renko bar. And so it's 6 ticks from the center of the bar is the outside edge either way. So, and it's a one step or 1 tick in this case in the direction of the trend will print a new bar. So every time you tick one direction in the current trend, either up or down, it'll print a new bar. So every time we have 1 tick down in price movement, we'll get a new Renko bar printing. For a bar to reverse, it'll have to not go down that next tick, but it'll have to turn around, go back 6 ticks the other way, back to the middle, 6 more ticks to reach the other edge of the range, and then 1 more tick in that opposite direction to print the reversal bar. So then you'll see a long tail with that wick, and you'll have a reversal bar. And at that point, prices reverted enough in the opposite direction to print a new bar and start a trend in the opposite direction.
And Charles, that's like customizable, right? You tell it how many ticks you want the bars to print at.
Yes, absolutely. With the bars, and there are many different variations of Renko bars. You can find them. The most common is Unirenko, but there are all kinds of different variations on Renko bars. Some of them have more limitations than others. And the one that we have in this particular system, I do use the system from T7 Trade Labs, and the website is t7tradelabs.com. But this is the Renko bar style that was created by my partner. And I like the look because it actually matched or was very similar to a Renko style that I was using previously when I was still kind of working on my own approach. And so when I found this website and started looking at what they were showing, it was very similar charts, but had some additional features and flexibility that I was really looking for. And so that's why I've persisted and moved forward with this. So I am a partner. Well, I shouldn't say partner, but I do a morning room where I display what I'm doing just to show people how to use what I've put together. And anybody can drop in anytime, no charge at this time for that. Anyway, so if you had price moving up and down, and in that fashion, so like here at the bottom, it's a little bit wide, but you kind of have a really ugly head and shoulders down here. It's not technically because this left shoulder was lower, not higher, but you kind of have a triple bottom here, and then price migrated back away from that area. Give me 1 second. My little one cat is at the door. Come on. So I apologize. I've got the door closed, and he wanted to come in. So the one thing with Renko bars, as I mentioned, do remove time, so it doesn't print a new bar. It'll only print a bar once you move 1 tick in the current direction or X number of ticks in the opposite direction to create a reversal. That said, the one thing that is a limitation or can be misleading a little bit with Renko bars is the only true price action that you know is when it prints a new bar, you know that price moved 1 tick in that direction. You have no idea what happened inside the rest of the body. We don't know if it never ticked down. It might have just ticked up. It never had a single back tick this whole time, or it might have gone outside of the body and all the way down to a previous level before coming back up. So when you see a tail, that's true price action in a Renko. So you know that price did revert all the way down to this bottom before it turned around and moved back up. So that's true representation of what happened while that bar was falling.
Can
But
you
otherwise,
can you clarify something for me?
of course, I'll
When
try.
it starts to break lower like that, isn't it supposed to print a new bar? Or am I misunderstanding it?
Well, the way that this implementation of the Renko bar that we've built is it'll only print the new bar, it'll print the reversal bar once you've moved not only so we have it set to a 6-1 bar for this particular example. So the body of the bar is 6 ticks on a bar that's in the same direction. So if you moved backwards 6 ticks, you'd be back at the midpoint, and then you'd have to move 6 ticks in the opposite direction to complete the body, and then 1 more tick would complete the bar and start printing a new bar. So in this case,
so those wicks are all exactly 6 ticks or less.
I believe it should all be 6 ticks,
Okay.
and then 1. So it should be 13 ticks altogether. Well, 12 ticks, and then 1 more tick to move the opposite direction in this case because it's a 6-1 bar.
Okay, gotcha.
So 6 plus 6, then plus 1 more to print a new bar.
Gotcha.
So yes, this does deviate. Again, the standard Renko that comes built in to Ninja does display different. And this is the implementation that we've done. Like I mentioned, there is a Unirenko. There are many different versions of the Unirenko that are out there that give you different flexibility in how you create the bar and how it prints. And you can change the way the bar looks by, we only allow you to change the offset in the number of ticks, which direction. So you can make this a 6-3, and then it would only print a new bar every 3 ticks. So you'd have to move 3 ticks away from the opening price of that bar, and then before it prints a new bar in that direction. So, and on the same point about Renko limitations, just know that, again, the center of the bar is not where price opened on the bar. It's the price did not open way down here in the middle of any given bar. It opens in the direction of if it's an up bar, the price opened at this level, at whatever level you see it at. And if price ticks backwards, it'll go down in the body. You won't see anything. If it ticks far enough, you'll see it poke out like it did here on this little Renko down bar here, that that price traveled all the way back up and then up to this point because it did leave a little bit of a tail there. But price does not open in the center of the bar. That's why if you ever backtest with one of these style of Renko bars, your backtest results will look amazing. because Ninja will use the center of the bar as the opening price, and typically, and so you've already made X ticks by the time it even prints the bar, because it's assuming the middle of the bar was the opening price, and then if you moved up 1 tick, it's going to count all the way from the center of the bar to that point as pure profit, even though you only moved 1 tick. And so your back testing with Renkos is not recommended, or unless you otherwise design something to account for that. And we have done that. So there is a back test mode on these on the strategies that we create with these Renko bars, and you can enable the back test mode, and that will internally adjust the way that the bar is read by NinjaTrader so that it gives you correct results on the back testing. But just know, if you ever, even with many, I shouldn't say every, because I don't know how other people build their bars, but if you use the standard Renko bar, be careful of back testing with Renko bars. That's just, I'll leave it at that. So, there's still more questions. I'm sorry, I'm still just yakking away. So let's get back to the next question. So I hope that answered the question about the head and shoulders pattern. So if price action does move up, so price moved between this low point here and this high point here. So you'll see that swing, and you can interpret, any kind of head and shoulders or other price action patterns that you want. It's still the same actual endpoints of price travel. It's just in between, you don't know how long these bars took to form unless you look at the time scale down on the bottom. There's no set distance or time distance between bars. Another question, it seems like it lessens the psychological impact of price action out of the movement. So yes, the way Renko bars print, you take the time. component out. So it only prints a new bar once you have movement in that direction. So if price just sits at that same price or ticks back even to the bottom of the body, you'll never see any indication outside of the edges of this bar that time has changed. So it's only when price moves outside of the body of the bar that it'll start to either print a wick on the bottom, or you'll get a new bar on the top in the direction that you're moving. And that could be a split second, or it could be several minutes, or if there's no price movement. So it does take all the action out of when you have quick movement in the price, you'll have quick printing of the bars, especially in this case, since they're set to print every new one tick and that in the given direction. But when the bar is not moving, you won't. If price isn't moving, you won't see the Renko printing. And I like the way that it kind of slows down a little bit the price movement for me that way. So in my opinion, it can be helpful, but you're going to miss a lot of the other type of candlestick pattern reading, because that's not possible with the way these bars print. You lose all that information. Can you use Fibonacci's with Renko? Absolutely. Yeah, again, so the endpoints of price movement are still the same. So you can pull fib lines or whatever between whatever pieces you want. So if you started down here and you went to this top, you can see that price came within a tick or so of I guess that's the 72% retracement level right there, or 76%. It's hidden behind the bar. I can't quite read it, but you can see
that looks like a classic test to the 61.8, and then pushes just a little through it and then turns.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So it did just that, and that can be very helpful too. So yeah, all those type of tools will work just fine. And again, this isn't something unique or special to T7 or us. And I'm just trying to remove that guy. I'm trying to, but it's just part of the Renko bar. So okay, let's get on to the other questions, and then I can go through building a chart with you. So how do you set levels and zones? Well, you can still use any methodology that you currently use. Again, you'll lose some of the price action that you might see with minute bars or hourly bars or things like that. If you use any of that for helping you draw levels, but if you use Fibonacci or Gann or any of that, because you're using a fixed endpoint, typically as your, like even this retracement, this pullback here, you can tell that was, you can use a Gann or a Fibonacci or anything to still measure how far that was in the current trend, things like that. So absolutely, you can use. Now for zones, we actually have some specialized indicators that we use that take into account the price action and the order flow a little bit, that give us heads up as to potential zones where price may have some hesitation or even reversal. And I'll show that momentarily once we get to building the charts. And all that would be automated depending on the settings that you use for the things that we built. Mm-hmm. What type of pivots are used? I honestly, I'm not clear on that question. I don't know, Jay. Do you have do you think you understand what is being asked?
I don't know. Because she could mean pivot points. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, I apologize, Shirley, but if you do ever feel like reaching out, I'd be happy to discuss with you or answer any other questions as well. So what I'll try to do after this is I'll come into this YouTube channel and I'll just post my email address and contact information, or somehow that you could reach out and we can touch base. And yeah, I wish you were here too, but perhaps if you ever wish, you can always come into the room and just talk with me anytime, any trading morning. I'm usually there. Not to pump, but this is the website of where things are in a bit of a hiatus at the moment, and while I just get, some things cleaned up that I've been working on for several months and get my trading up to par. But I have the room open and it's free to just drop on hands. Anyone's welcome to come on in, and you can still contact us through the website or just by emailing me direct. And I can get to that later. I guess I should stop and check before I forget. Are there any questions at this point? I don't see any. I don't see the chat at the moment. So.
Yeah, there's no questions so far.
Okay, then we'll just go on. So that's where I started. Well, I guess let me move this off. I had intended to not put too much on the screen initially, and I'm sorry that there's still some stuff here. So in general, so the basic T7 methodology that my partner Troy devised, and again, this was just to help him with his trading initially. He never intended to market or to have share this with others, but he built some Renko bars, and then he started looking at patterns and waves and cycles. And so basically we use this Renko bar, and the middle line that changes color depending on slope is just basically it's a 200 moving average. It's an EMA. So 200 EMA, it's a little different. It's off by a little bit. It's a 196 technically, for whatever reason. I call it a 200 EMA. And in general, that just shows you the trend of the market in general where you're at. So when price is above it, you tend to be trending up. And when price is vacillating around and going from side to side, you kind of tend to be in a bit of a sideways channel often. I'm going to ignore the little other EMA that's plotting on there. I just didn't remove when I was clearing up a few things early on. So what Troy did is he started working with cycles early on, and he started trying to figure out can I find when the market tends to be cycling up or near an extreme where it might cycle back down, and finding patterns in that. And he built this bottom indicator that's in this panel number 2 here, or 3 actually, is this, we call it the cycle finder. And it's nothing that I don't have a lot of insight as to how he built it, but it is sort of the core of the T7 system. As we're looking to be long or looking for turns when we stop going down and start turning up, that we're looking for potential ideas when price may move up and follow the pattern. Again, we're trying to go with the flow of the market here. So in general, we try to be trade with the trend. So generally when we're above the 200 moving average, we like to be looking for primarily longs. And when you're below, you try to be looking for shorts or short reentries. And so in general, when you're getting back above the 200, you're looking for pullbacks lower in the zone to this greenish area in general. And you can tweak and tune all this to your heart's content if you want to mess with the standard settings. But in general, we look for, as just happened here, we came down into this zone and then we turned back up. And it's a little bit hard to see, but there is a little arrow pointed, a little green arrow that appeared right down there. There is some other calculations that go on. So it's not simply that we pull down and we pull back up. Like over here, we didn't get a cycle finder arrow. Here we did, but it was, a while after the cycle had already peaked and started to turn around. So I don't know all the details of every nuance of how it gets calculated, but that's sort of the general first piece as for signals that my partner Troy started working with. So in general, and I do use Bloodhounds, so this is something that's not part of the T7 stuff, but you may have it. And I just use it to make it a little bit easier for me to visually see the cycle finder arrows down there, since they can kind of be a little bit small sometimes. So this, I just use Bloodhound, and Bloodhound puts a stripe on the screen when you see certain conditions. And right now it's just whenever we see the cycle finder arrows blocked. So we had a potential down opportunity down over here, and then we see that we were starting to cross or we were starting to trend up on the 200 EMA. And it just so happened that here we were close enough to being in an uptrend, and at the turn of a current cycle that we got a cycle finder long there. We just had another one moments ago, as I pointed out, when it was happening in real time. That happened right here, and all those are potentials. So that's the main primary signal that we have in the approach. Secondarily, as I mentioned, we try to be trend traders, and so another potential entry that Troy, both of these were made by Troy early on, and so when I came on here, we have the cycle finder and the trend finder. The trend finder is effectively when you're above the 200 EMA and you're making a push in this case, say an up move, you have a pull back towards the 200 EMA or in the region of it, and then you get another up bar. I don't have them displayed on here right now. I could restart the strategy to print the triangles. It prints little triangles where potential entries are, but effectively it's just looking for pullbacks in a current trend. So if you feel that you're in a strong trend and the trend may continue, obviously you're looking for the current push to end, to get a little bit of a pullback into an ideal zone or closer to the 200, and then another push off. And sometimes when you get into an extended trend, those type of re-entry opportunities can be really lucrative. So that's the trend finder. I did mention this in last month's webinar. The third item that we have here on our trade panel is called the Slingshot. So something that I just happened to notice that I kind of liked when it came to the Renkos. Remember when I mentioned about how Renkos are constructed is we don't have any clue as to the price action inside the body of the Renko bar. The only way that there's price movement is when it creates a new bar up or in the same direction, it ticked up or down past the opening price. The other opportunity you have is when you see a wick on a Renko bar, that price did move all the way fully down through the body of the bar and then plotted down below. So what this tells me, or the way I read it, and typically this is another trend trade, it's not every wick is a trade, but when you're in a strong trend or a stronger trend, when you have a pullback, and so basically in this case, a trend could be as simple as just a number of bars the same color. So here we have 3 green bars before us, and then we start plotting this new bar, and this is all buyers buying into the market. But then we have selling action come in, and we have this wick appear because the sellers push the price action all the way down here. In this case, we didn't break down far enough to print a reversal bar. So what this tells us after the fact is that the sellers ran out of juice, and the buyers were not only strong enough to push the price back up into the body of the bar, but they're able to push it back to the top and then even one price level higher and move price up to a new bar and a new bar prints. And just intuitively to me, that seems to show a bit of very short-term strength. And so I started looking for these type of setups, and the way I kind of like to think about it is like a kid running around with a slingshot is you put the rock or whatever in the rubber band holder cup and you pull back on the rubber bands as hard as you can, and then when you run out of energy and you can't pull it any further, you let go, and price momentum tends to continue to push that little projectile, whatever it was, in this case price action. It can often push price action higher. It's a short-term thing, but it shows momentum and aggression on the part of the market participants in that current trend. So whenever you see those are little slingshot opportunities, potentially, if you like that sort of an entry, or if you're in a strong trend and you think that it'll continue, and you see the sort of a situation set up, that's often a good point to get in, at least for a quick scalp. Of course, anytime you take any trade, you want to look at what's in front of you first and make sure you have room to run. The last thing I'll cover at the moment here as to the different types of entries was one that I'm just finishing up and that I've added recently, is called a squeeze. And that's where you see the pink boxes on here. So what I started looking at price action and prior prices, and it's sort of similar to, people have heard of the squeeze in other indicators, but yeah, we're looking for price action and prior movement and order flow. And when we see a sort of a compression, just similar to like what the squeeze does, we get this, we start printing a box, and I identify that by dots on this little line down here below the price action. So the box currently will only print once the squeeze fires. So you won't see the purple box in real time up here. It'll only appear after the squeeze fires, and then it'll mark it on the chart. So I'd like to say right now, nothing that I can recall at the moment, nothing that we paint nothing that we have repaints on the screens. Everything, you should be able to take any of the things that we do and go back and back test them if you like, or review them in historical fashion. So, but this kind of implied here that price was sort of compressing around this particular zone, and then when it broke out of that compression area, we got this, much like a slingshot, we get this catapult of energy away from that compression area. Here was one where we detected some compression here, and it catapulted it away. Here, the same thing happened. It did come back in this case. It did start, and then we had some intermittent buyers come in this case. It pulled it back. Often when that happens, I'll see it often come back right to the midline or the center point of the box, which just, I didn't pick this for any, this is not a setup screen, but it's interesting that I see that, not always, but often you'll see it come right back to the middle of the squeeze outline, and then not every squeeze works, but this was interesting. It came back to that same level again here and then pushed away. So I tend to be a scalper, at least right now, and I'm looking for short-term opportunities in the volatility that we have to pull some short-term profits out of the market every day. That's what I do. So again, here you can see we had multiple bars, multiple attempts. We pushed down, pushed up, pushed back down, and then pushed up, and it wasn't until here that the calculations confirmed that we were probably exiting that compression and we're ready to go, and we didn't get caught in this little chop down here very nicely. Now, it doesn't always work, and typically squeezes in the direction of the trend would be recommended as opposed to counter trend, but you can take it however you see fit. Here was another squeeze that pushed up. Here's a squeeze that fired down. So this is a counter trend one, a counter trend signal. And you can see here it only went a few ticks before it got reversed on, but the opportunity is there depending on your trade plan. So, oh, I see that there is some information in the chat, and there's my chat. So let's have a quick look if I've missed any questions. Oh, you can't see. So Joel, you're having trouble seeing my pointer. I apologize. Joel, is anybody, or Jay, rather, sorry, is anybody else having trouble seeing the crosshair on my charts, or maybe
I see it clearly. So
okay, Joel, please let me know if you're still having trouble, or if there's, maybe I was looking, or
I mean, I don't see a pointer. I just see the crosshairs. So
right, and that's why I have part of the reason I have the crosshairs on. I'm glad we have it here. It is a little bit easier to see what I'm looking at. I apologize. So if you do have any clarification, oh, interesting. Well, hopefully it'll be on the recording, but I'm so sorry, Joel, that I only saw your question now, and try refreshing and let me know if you can see the NinjaTrader crosshair on the chart. So in the meanwhile, I'll pull that off onto the side for a minute. So I'll just go now into building the chart that I use. So the basics of the chart are right here. We have basically just a Renko type setup. We have a generic trend guidance with the 200. Well, I call it the midline or the center line. It's the 200 EMA, technically 196. You can adjust it if you like, but that's the default. So when we're above it, we're looking for longs and shorts. And then we have the cycle down here that we use for some of the base entry opportunity signals that can be used in the product. So I'll go to the indicators and I'll start adding a few things on to help show, just build in some of the things that we have that help add some of this back in. So let me see, at this point, I do have some things here like we have the internals. I think those might actually be visible. The internals give us a whole bunch of additional things, like you can have it show the opening range. So if anybody here likes to see or know what the opening range is, and you can configure that, how many minutes and starting at what time, and things like that. So you can, so typically I look at the first 5 minutes, and if I do, I will color it a little bit of a shade of yellow. And then for the rest of the day, you'll have that yellow range printing on the chart. So when if you ever get away from it and it's off your chart, then you come back to it and you see yellow coming on your screen, you'll know that you're coming back into the morning opening range. And often there can be some price opportunities as you approach that, the edges of that opening range, either from the outside or from the inside. You can show the open, high, low, close of the current day, and you can adjust all that. Down here's where you set the times for the things like the opening range and things like that. So just some basics that you might want to have on your chart. I add in the open and high, low, close of the prior day. That's a standard Ninja indicator. This is already visible because I have the strategy running, but that's just the midline. And here's just something that I put on my charts of, actually this one is not, so ignore that, I'm sorry. And let me see. One thing I did add in is we have the 200 EMA. This is an indicator that I found on the NinjaTrader ecosystem. It's called the BLT trigger lines. So I figured, why rebuild it when it's already out there? But I just put in half and then half again. So instead of having it's basically a 200, 100, 50 EMAs. So the 200 is already on there. So I use this to plot the 100, or in this case, the 98 and the 49. And what this indicator does is you give it the two EMAs and it'll color in the zone between them, which I found to be kind of cool, because especially when you're in a trend, you can tell you're above the 200, which tells you that you're basically in a nice uptrend or downtrend. But when you have pullbacks in that trend, for me, I found it helpful because sometimes we don't pull back to the 200. Like neither of these pullbacks came back to the 200. So on a naked chart here, why would I have any reason that I might want to think about it pausing at this level here or this level here? There's nothing visual that might guide you. But if you were to put like a 50 and 100 on your chart as well, in this case, it colors, I call it the cloud. It'll throw the 50 EMA and the 100 EMA on there. Oh, sorry, let me check. Did I not make it visible? Sorry about that. And that sort of gives you another visual idea of how close are you not only to the 200, which you can see clearly, but also to the range of sort of the 50 and the 100 EMAs. And I like the idea that those tend to be still useful levels as, well, I'm sure that a lot of other traders use the 50 and 100 and 200 on their charts, depending on the bars. And I've just found it to be very useful for me to have an idea of where to look for price potentially reversing, especially when you're in a trend. So here we didn't even quite get back to that because we're in such a strong trend right now. After hours, it is a thin market. It's after hours time, but that I found that helpful, and that's a free indicator, so it's something I put on my charts as well. In fact, what I may do is let's pull down. Let's go back to the open of today and just see what happened. Right around the open.
And Joel, just want to give you a heads up. We have about 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
20
Yeah.
minutes. If we go over a few minutes, whatever, but just a heads up.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay. So here's where we have, and you may not prefer it, but I have that cloud, I call it, on there just for guidance about where the 50 and the 100 EMAs are as well. And sometimes it's kind of useful. Let me add in. So one of the questions that came in before was, what do you do for levels? And here's an idea that's actually fairly new. Was we were doing a lot of analyzing of charts and the tools that we use, and we came up with this idea of this. It's called the T7 multi because it looks at multiple different things inside the way that the price action moves. But I've just found a couple different configurations with it. It's something that we did notice early on. And when we plot these zones, often they can be really helpful in seeing where price may turn or have hesitation. So now obviously the open is a very active time. So those may not, but you'll see that these little rectangles get plotted on the chart. Sometimes they're wide, sometimes they can be small, it depends on the price action. But they can be very helpful sometimes with giving an idea of whether there's an area of potential resistance ahead. We can see here that right out of the open, we came up here and we see this tail on this Renko bar right here that we came right into this zone. And for some reason, there was some initial selling that came out of it, and then we pushed on through. There was a prior zone up here that's super thin, and I'm kind of funny. You'd think thicker ones would be interesting or stronger, perhaps, but I found sometimes when you get these super thin lines that are plotted as a zone, price will often go right to the tick and then reverse off of those. And it's kind of magic. I don't know. Just this one down here, the line one didn't work quite. It went down a few ticks through it before it reversed, but sometimes it's kind of interesting. So I found that to be kind of helpful. I use them in my daily charts here, and like to see those on the charts. Again, the open is very energetic, but we can see here that we did have a zone up here that we tried twice to push into and came away. When we came down here, a new zone started plotting back here when price was actually moving away. And when we came back, we bounced in and tested it twice and then took off from it. So there seems to be some interesting, information plotted in these levels, and so I find that really helpful. And it can, depending on what the thickness is and everything that we get, it can put a lot on the charts, but I find it really helpful. So I'll try to get to completing the charts and just looking at what people, or what I've, put in with the strategies we have. Let me see what else we had in here. I think that's just about most of it for now. Yeah, I think that's generally most of what's on my charts. So this is what I trade, or this is what I look for in the morning. The side panel over here on the chart trader, on NinjaTrader, we do have what we call the T7 Trend Finder strategy. And we used to have different strategies for different pieces. So like the Cycle Finder had a strategy built in where it could help. I wouldn't use the word automate. I prefer to call it trade assist. I found that often I was missing opportunities because I would miss the signals when they happened because I'd be looking away or just not ready to take the trade. So I wanted a way to help me to get into the trade sometimes when a signal or a certain setup appeared. And so what we did is we eventually gathered the different signals and put them into a single trade panel over here that has user modifiable or selectable buttons on it. So when the buttons are red, the strategy component for that signal is turned off. When it's green, the strategy component is turned on. And that doesn't mean it'll take a trade. It just means that it's active and ready for you to tell it if you wanted to enter the signal coming up. And then as soon as the longs and the shorts are the trigger buttons that turn everything on, if you will. If you click on the longs, you'll see that it highlights a green highlight, basically border around the window, letting you know that the strategy is active in long mode on this particular window. And when you have several different charts, sometimes you can lose track of where the entry assist is active. And so I found that really important, is to be able to glance at your screen and see where you have active entry assists running. If you have active shorts ready to be taken, or well, if you have the strategy actively looking to take the next upcoming signal for shorts, it'll make a border, but it's red. And if you have them both, if you're for some reason looking for the next active signal either direction, then it makes the border yellow, just to give you a caution that you're looking both directions for the next active signal will be entered. And there's a whole slew of configurations for each of those independent strategy entries. We have all this detailed pieces inside the strategy that allow you to configure how many contracts you want. You can have multiple targets, multiple stops. You can have automatic trailing, things like that. So I've tried to add as many pieces in there to help me with the trading that I do actively. And then, of course, once you're in a trade, there's two buttons down here, break even and close, that immediately become active. So once you're actively in a trade, you can pull up you can go onto the chart and try to click your stop loss and click it and move it up and let go. Sometimes in an active market or when a chart gets moving, sometimes it can be a little bit frustrating to try to grab. I don't know if anybody else has run into that, but sometimes it can be challenging to grab your stops and pull them up when your attention is all over the place. Here you have a single click that will bring your stop up to as close without crossing the current price level. So it won't put the stop in front of price, which would, of course, cancel your order and get you out of the market immediately. And also turns off if you ever have a situation like that, the strategy will immediately turn off and disable and get you out of the market, or it should. But it'll break even as close as it can to where your entry point is, or your current price, wherever you're at. And then every time you do click after that, it'll move your stop loss up one price tick on your chart. So instead of hunting around to grab the flags on the chart, you can just go over here and click, 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 and it'll ratchet your stop loss up after price, if that's what you're doing. And of course, at any time you decide to get out of a trade, you click on the close button and it'll immediately close out the trade. We did add in, or I had us add in, just two buttons that will just market you in at the given moment. You don't need a signal if you just decide that you want to be long. You can go long or go short either way, and that'll market you into the whatever instrument you have on your chart instantly. The last thing that I've recently added that I've been playing around with quite a bit lately is basically it'll enter you long if the current bar closes up. So say here that I had some reason to think that we were coming off of a really good support area that I thought we're just going to keep on going along, and I just want to get in. I missed the signal. Here was a cycle finder signal, but I missed it, and I want to just get into the market now. You can use the go long button instantly to mark it in. But if I want a little bit more confirmation that, oh, well, price is kind of hesitating here, I'm not sure, but if this bar does close up, I definitely want to continue in the same direction, then you can enable that. And then should the bar close up, it'll instantly market you long into the trade. And the same with the down close. So if you say, I don't know if this bar is going to close down, but if it does close down, I want to be short. And you can just enable that. And then your focus then can be on looking at, again, more analysis, whatever it is you might want to be doing, without having to worry about actually watching every tick of the price action over here to say, is it going to close down or not? And do I click on market buttons up here when it does? This will automatically do it for me. And if I change my mind and say, it looks too strong, I don't think I want to be short anymore, I just turn it off, and signal will never fire. And once, just so you know, with these last two little buttons here, I had the programmer add in the flexibility that regardless of whether it fires off or if the bar closes in the opposite direction, so it never triggers, it'll disable as soon as that bar is completed. So you don't have to worry after the fact to come back here and turn it back off. So as soon as the bar closes, either up or down, whichever of these was active will be turned off, and you don't have to worry about looking away from your computer and getting into another trade that you weren't expecting or weren't ready for. So little things like that I've found helpful. But anyway, that's about the basics of what I've been trying to work on lately. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to go into any detail. I can review trade opportunities or signals. You can see here that, again, the cycle finder has been giving potential trade entries back here. We can go to a different instrument if anybody wants. I do have other instruments up and charts and things. And I don't know, any questions anybody has or would like to look at, or something that anybody would like to review? Joel or Jay or anybody?
Well, I don't have anything specific.
Okay. So one of the other things that I turned it off and I forgot about it is with the cycle finder, we also have a divergence entry. So when the cycle finder has say if you're in an uptrend, if it has, well, it's easier maybe to just enable it with Bloodhounds so you can see it better, is we have a divergence opportunity, and I make those magenta. So I'll just go back here and find one. So here was a cycle finder divergence signal where we had an equal or lower low on the price. So we're coming down on the cycle here. We made a bottoming cycle and price bottomed here. We moved a little bit away and we came back down, broke that bottom price-wise, but we didn't break it on the cycle. So we're still kind of in a general trying to push up cycle. It had just a little bit of a detour here, but it didn't completely, make a new cycle or start all over again. So price went down a tick below the low, but the cycle did not break the low. So we had a divergence type setup there. And it's a counter trend opportunity, but I found that those cycle divergence entries can be very, they can give you some really good opportunities to grab a few ticks out of the market. So sorry, I just wanted to get that in there because I forgot to re-enable that signal on the chart when I was displaying it.
Now you're talking my language.
Okay, yeah. So divergences. Now, as we both know, divergences don't always work, but it can be very interesting when it does. And I have a smaller account, and I'm just trying to. I realize scalping can be a very challenging strategy to do day by day and consistently, but it's where I am right now in my trading path, and I'm just looking for a paycheck out of the market. So if we go back towards the morning's open, again, here was a really interesting setup where we had price basically double top here into this T7 zone that was printed all the way back here. We didn't push through it here, so it left the zone working, because I don't count a zone as broken until we completely cut through it. So we came back to it double topped, and then we got this divergence signal on the cycle finder, and that led to a really interesting. It was counter trend because we were above the 200, but it left us with a really interesting opportunity to grab a little bit of that short opportunity right there. So
awesome.
Let me see. I see that. So Joel, I hope that you were able to get everything, but Joel says, I use the Renko when they have a tail for buy-sell entries, and when there's a trend, which works quite good with other things I watch before I enter a trade. Absolutely. So yeah, I'm not the only one. These slingshots can be really, really interesting. So, all these little wicks those are opportunities, especially when you get into a nice working trend. I'm below resistance or support here because I'm below the 200, and I've had a pretty good trend running. We have a pullback here, and then we close down, which says the sellers are still in charge. And yeah, it goes a couple of bars, and then you have another pullback, but the sellers still come back in and push lower. And then we get a nice little, probably 10-tick move off of that. Well, that was rating to another level down there, but we sliced through it momentarily, and then resorted back on. Yeah, that's my quote unquote signature slingshot move, and I guess I can't patent it because Joel does it too. But I like the idea that being able to see that energy in the market, and you can see those on Renko bars where you might not see that sort of action on a minute or a different type of bar, because again, the Renko won't print a new bar until we move in the direction or you completely turn around and reverse and get enough push in the other direction to print a reversal bar. So these sorts of things show up all the time where you have energy in the market, and in this case, the buyers just get overwhelmed. The sellers run them over and just keep pushing down. And those work really good for quick bursts of scalps. And Joel says, yes, especially if it breaks through any important points like the 200 moving average. Absolutely, Joel, 100%. So that's what I do is I look for areas of support resistance. I look for those to break. Either if they break, then I'm looking for momentum beyond those. And if we ever get any retests or pullbacks into it, then still close in the same direction. That's like here, it wasn't quite the same, but we had this, we kind of came below the 200 here, and here we didn't quite get back up to it, but the buyers tried, and then sellers just overwhelmed them, and we had a nice push back down. So we had some really interesting stuff happening today on gold and crude oil both. I know the charts can be, especially when we get into these trends where you can see that, you basically you have red above or blue below or green, whichever direction you're going. So red above, and here we're stacked. We have the 200 and the 100 and the 50 all stacked in our favor. We keep coming back into the cloud or the zone of the 50, 100, 200 right up in here. And here we had it was a bouncy start, but we never broke the pivot, which is how I like to look at it. And we had a cycle down that had a nice move. We came back up to it again, up to the cloud. We had another cycle push down. It gave us a bit of heartburn, but continued down right into the level that it pre-printed way back when. Came back right up to the 200, broke it by a couple of ticks, got another cycle push down. Now that was a long push back that would have probably told me be cautious. That was a hard push. And we had a little zone that was printing right here from some price action back in this area. And you can see we actually came right down to it right there, and buyers came in right to the tick. Buyers came in, but then the sellers overwhelmed them, and we get that little signature slingshot move. And it pushed right down through, came back, retested it from the bottom. The buyers again got overwhelmed, and we get a secondary slingshot that pushes it to within a couple ticks or a tick or so of this next zone down here. So some really interesting opportunities to get in. My issue right now, I'll be honest, is trade management. I have plenty of reasonable signals, I think. It's just managing the trades and managing my monkey brain when I'm in a trade and trying to not get frightened out. Try to hold on for longer targets and things. But that's a journey for each of us. But I think that we have some reasonable things here that's helped me so far to, at least it's what I think makes sense to me for finding reasonable probability trade opportunities. And again, I often don't see things in real time as quickly as I should. And sometimes I have to resort to the trade assist over here that helps me to just say, I know that I'm looking for a cycle. I can see the cycle coming up and getting ready. So if I just say I'm ready for a short cycle, I'll turn these off. And I'm looking for cycles. So at this point, the next cycle finder short signal that occurs, it'll enter me in on the signal. So then this one that came up here, it would have entered me there. And then I just have to work on trade management. And
Welcome to the party.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, and that was a perfect sell right at the 200 EMA. I might be referring to this one over here, but yeah, I love these pullbacks, and the Renko chart makes it very, very clean and easy to see these. It eliminates all the internal price movement. And after the fact, it's like, well, we're in a downtrend. We pulled back to the 200 right here, and that's now we get a pinch here. I call it pinching when we move too far through, or too fast or too far through the 50 and the 100. We got to the 200, but these kind of the 50 and the 100 pretty much went flat. And so that sometimes can be a warning sign. Is just be careful here, because we might be in a short-term trend change or trend transition, where we might be transitioning from a trend into what's consolidation, right? We just might be going sideways for a while, even. It's possible. So when these EMAs get too close together, I like to take a warning sign and just be, if I am going to enter a trade, be Johnny on the spot and watch what I'm doing and manage it well. But here in this case, it pushes through, bounces off this zone, which I probably would have taken initial targets there anyway. It pushed away. And then if you say, well, the sellers come back in, then I'm happy to re-enter, seeing the energy of the slingshot coming back in, even into a support zone. You might say, well, I'm going to get out. And if those close back down, showing me there's still selling pressure here, then I may rejoin. But I'm not going to give up everything right in there just because I'm into a zone that I respect first. So I'll consider re-entering. And with that,
yeah, love it.
I'll turn off my signals. Yeah.
So I don't have any further questions, but we do have to kind of wrap things up.
Okay.
So do you have anything else you want to kind of add that you haven't mentioned so far before we close out for the week?
Let me just well, I think it was asked before. I'll just be happy to put it here, and I'm not trying to use you as a tool for advertising, but I'm just, because I have a room open in the mornings. Feel free to. I mean, I use this Zoom just like you do. I use Zoom, and anyone's welcome to just come on in and ask questions or just watch or whatever. But I can get the link and post it for you if you like. I don't know if you're tracking the chat in the recording, but if not, then I could just put it on the, perhaps I could post it to the YouTube or some other way. I don't know. I just don't want to get Zoom bombed by anybody who runs across a Zoom link and comes up to us. I don't know if you have a recommendation that way. Well, I'll just say that maybe the best way is either go through the website here, and if you scroll towards the bottom, there should be a contact us where you can put in your name, email address, and a message, solve the capture down here. And I will admit that I don't check email as often as I should, but I'll get back to you as soon as I see it. Or otherwise, you can email me direct. And this is, again, the website here is t7tradelabs.com. Like I said, I've just really been building things up, and my partner's doing work on himself as well. So we're not as actively advertising and pushing the business right now. I'm just trying to see if there's ways that I can help people find something that may help them, or just trade ideas and see if there's something I can add that helps us all. Let me see if I can get my, I can put my email address in here, and then we can just end it with that.
Okay, yeah. Well, I love it. A lot of this stuff, although I don't use Renko, I think it's assuring to know that other people are looking at similar levels, deriving things in a similar way. So it's really good stuff. Let me go ahead and just formally close out the meeting. So once again, I want to thank everybody for being here. It's been a little quiet, I have to say, this week and even last month, a little quieter than I would like. So I'm hoping that more people come out, get involved. I'd like to see a few more people present. Like I said, I can present pretty much every month, but you're probably going to get tired of my stuff after a while. So it'd be nice to get some new faces in here. and some new perspectives on how to read the market, because with every new perspective, there's something to be learned. And whether that's you decide that the person's an idiot and nothing, you don't agree with what they do, or you find something you want to add, or something that just confirms what you're already doing. So it's always helpful to have that. So once again, Charles, thank you so much for being here and for presenting. You don't know how much it means to me.
I really appreciate being able to share ideas, and I love what you do. So thank you, Joel. Jay, for the opportunity. I did happen to put my T7 email address up there. If anybody, it's t7.charles.s. There's 2 S's in there. Might be hard to see. Okay. And at gmail.com. And if anybody ever wants to touch base or talk trades, I'm happy, because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm on my journey too. So I'm not trying to sell anybody anything that they don't want here. But I'm happy to talk anytime.
Awesome. I think that wraps things up. So have a great week, guys. And we'll be back, like I said, next month. And if anyone is here in Vegas, don't be shy. Come out next week and come hang out with us in person. That will be on the Las Vegas day traders meetup, not the Las Vegas futures traders meetup. So I think that's it. Thanks again, everybody. And we'll see you next month. Have a great one.
Take care, Jay.
Take care.